Welcome to the Red Pill Sports and Entertainment Show. This is Albert Apache. I am your host, and as usual, we are brought to you by Open Source Self-Defense, Fitness, and Grappling. Okay, so a few things I need to get into right off the bat. First and foremost is going to be something that occurred to me for everybody's benefit, including my own. By the way, I'm filming outside today, so if there's a lot of background noise, I'm sorry about that. But here in the Valley of the Sun, Phoenix metro or suburban area, if you will, it is a beautiful day, so I am enjoying the weather. Let's move on. So what occurred to me the other day is that I had recommended that you train at some of the gyms where you have a trainer and there's some group fitness classes and where you could get encouragement and you could also be immersed in a culture that would be along the same lines as you. And something was said. I was listening to a speaker the other day, and he's a coach when it comes to business, and I was listening to this guy talk, and all of a sudden it occurred to me that it's exactly applicable to your fitness and weight loss journey. And what he said was, the reality is, here's the hard truth. They don't want you to succeed. Nobody wants you to succeed. And to a certain extent, that's true of the people that are closest to you in your circle of influence in your family, right? Whether we're talking husband, wife, kids, whatever the case may be, they really don't want you to succeed because the reality is misery loves company. Now, that's not to say that those people have a ill will towards you. What it means is that too many times across the board, there's a crab in the bucket mentality that people have, where if they can't get out of something, they don't want you to be able to get out with them. They want the company. They want to be in their misery, but they want to have company there. So they don't want you to succeed. And it's not that they have malice towards you. It's just that they don't want to be left behind. So this is another reason why you need to join the type of gym that is going to have people of like-mindedness, people who have similar goals, people who have done what you're trying to do, that are going to encourage you and be a support system for you. Okay. The next thing I really wanted to touch on is I did look a little bit more into it. I mentioned it on the Facebook little videos and things like that, that it appears that Gracie University has gone back to the drawing board when it comes to their Women Empowered session or curriculum, and they are releasing Women Empowered 2.0. I have not seen it. It is actually not available for purchase as of yet. It is only available for pre-order. They added some techniques, and I'm hoping that they took a little bit different approach, because if you've followed any of the show, you know that I've done a review on that particular product, as well as all the entire Combatives Learn at Home curriculum they have, Combatives, Bully Proof, and the Women Empowered. And one of my main critiques was that across the board for all three programs was, number one, that I felt that the price was somewhat high, given that you only get a handful of techniques in each curriculum. And then not only that, but that I felt like many of the techniques that were, for instance, in Combatives should have been included in the Women Empowered, and some of the stuff that was in Women Empowered should have been included in Combatives. And so I just kind of felt like there was gaps that each system had that they should have included in the other systems. I just felt they could have done a better job, giving you a better bang for your buck, if you will, by including different stuff. My other critique was from a psychological standpoint, because we know that from the statistics anyway, that generally speaking, of women that are sexually assaulted, they're usually assaulted by somebody that they know. And so I didn't really care for the heavy emphasis of the scary stranger narrative. All of the techniques that they showed or that they kind of went over kind of attacked it from that perspective, and I didn't really care for that. I thought that, it was reinforcing a dangerous stereotype when it comes to women's self-defense, and that is that, they're going to try and grab you and take you away and whisk you away, and you can fight off this scary stranger. And really, you need to be prepared for the person that you thought you could trust, that you allowed into your personal space, that then you're going to have to fight off. And you may have some psychological barriers to using lethal techniques, because again, there's a certain level of denial that's going to go through your mind at first, thinking that, well, if I'm just forceful enough with my no, this person will stop doing what they're doing, because you think that that person. So I really felt like there were some things they could have done better there. But I am going to pre-order the Women Empowered 2.0, and I am going to take a look at it. I'm not really sure how I feel about the little thing they put in about Fit Jitsu. It kind of looks like it's going to be some kind of workout routine. It might be nice. I mean, in a way, they're kind of giving you drills. It looks like, anyway, a series of drills to do. If it's that, then I think it's going to be awesome. If it's like a cardio kickboxing, but for jiu-jitsu, honestly, I don't know if I'm going to like that. So anyhow, we'll see what they got. And who knows, maybe I'm completely wrong, and maybe it is that, and maybe it takes off and it spreads like wildfire. All right, so let's get into this. So now we're talking, and again, Tom Brady won yet another playoff game that he wasn't supposed to win. And of course, people are trying to diminish Tom Brady. I really had to sit down and think about this, because I noticed that a lot of the people diminishing what he's done are some of his own contemporaries. And I had to really try to sit down and understand this, because here's the thing. I mean, everybody pretty much across the board agrees that quarterback is the toughest position to play in all of team pro sports. And that's because the quarterback needs to know basically everybody's job on his offense. He has to understand what kind of defense he has, so that he knows, he can make the right calls and plays as far as risk reward for his own team's defense. And he has to understand and know the defense of every team that he faces. On top of that, the quarterback gets the lion's share of the pressure, the lion's share of the praise, the lion's share of the blame when they lose. So it's the toughest position to play in all of pro sports as far as team sports go. Now, Jason Whitlock said something, and I completely would agree with him, and he said that, Tom Brady is the greatest athlete of his generation. He said that after the San Diego win. I absolutely agree with that. Now, why some of his peer group just keep saying no, 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 and a lot of them won't even come out and just say he's the greatest quarterback of all time. Some of them still want to try and debate that with Joe Montana. I mean, and again, I love Joe. I think that Joe was a great quarterback. I think he was the greatest of all time until Brady. Okay? Now, all of that being said, I couldn't wrap my mind around why people didn't want to give Tom Brady, especially his peer group, the credit that he deserves. And it finally dawned on me. Tom Brady doesn't get the credit he deserves because Tom Brady is not the prototypical body type of what we've been sold makes you successful in pro sports. He's not the tallest, he's not the biggest, he's not the fastest, he's not the quickest, he's not the strongest, okay? He's none of those things. And what we're sold continuously is that it's quote unquote God-given talent. That's what makes a professional athlete, God-given talent. If you don't have the God-given talent, don't even get on the football field, right? And you see these guys are massive athletes, lots of muscle mass, super strong, super fast, super quick, and they're getting beat by a guy who is not particularly that. I mean, yeah, he's probably bigger, stronger, faster than the average American man, but he's not bigger, stronger, faster, or quicker than the average NFL player. So he takes away their excuses. He takes away their excuses that it's just quote unquote God-given talent. Because Tom Brady outworks them. That's why Tom Brady is still playing, and some of these guys that are being critical of Tom Brady and not wanting to give him his due as the greatest athlete of our generation or his generation. The reason why they don't want to is because he outworked them. He beat them. They're over here retired, and he's still playing the game at an extraordinarily high level. Think about that. For 2 decades, he's been doing this. 2 decades. He is the best at his craft, and he's been the best at his craft for 2 decades. Who else can say that? There's not a lot of people. Even Michael Jordan's run, let's say we take away the 2 years where he went to go try baseball. Okay, even Michael Jordan's run was only 6 years. If you add those in, is only 8, so not even an entire decade. Imagine if Michael Jordan had, played those 2 years and then add another 8 years, and then he's in the conversation if he was in the Eastern Conference Finals or in the finals, 2 or 3 more times. Then he's in the conversation of what Tom Brady's accomplished. Think about that. On average, Tom Brady has been in the Super Bowl every other year in his career. That is absolutely insane. But how does he do it? Because he's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, he's not the fastest. So he takes away people's excuses. He breaks the mold of what we are told and taught is an alpha male. Because we're told an alpha male is big and strong and fast, and it's about muscle mass and muscle density. No, it's not. It's about mindset. It's about having a mindset that is a growth mindset, that you can grow and build and become bigger and better than you were, and that you're constantly competing against you, not the other guy. And that's the secret. If you think about it, that's kind of the secret behind Tom Brady. Tom Brady is not always trying to beat everybody else as much as, if you think about it, he's trying to always be better than he was the previous season, the previous game, right? That's what Tom Brady does. So I think that the reason why you will not see a lot of his contemporaries give him his due is because he takes away their excuses of why they haven't succeeded, why they didn't succeed, why they were unable to beat him. That's the truth in my view. In my view, that's the deal. Now, I think there are some that have issue with Tom Brady, not only because he breaks that mold, but I do feel like there are some sports commentators, okay, that have a racial issue with Tom Brady and a political issue with Tom Brady. Tom Brady's never come out and been over the top about his political views, okay? But, it's been somewhat evident from, State of the Unions he's shown up at and little MAGA hats and stuff like that, that he has a right-leaning political view. And I think there's some sports commentators that, Rob Parker, that try to tear down Tom Brady because of something that has to do with race and politics and nothing to do with, his actual accomplishments. And you even see this similar kind of thing with, Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson is very down to earth. He's very quiet. He's not outspoken, right? People tend to almost, downplay what an amazing job he's done in Seattle. You hear the same critiques now of Dak coming from the same people, yet those same people that critique Dak over and over for being quote-unquote dink and Dak offense, they go to bat, Shannon Sharp, every time they have a chance for Colin Kaepernick. Yet if you look at Colin Kaepernick's numbers and you break them down, he was more dink and Dak than Dak was. So, it's just one of those things where, when it comes to the commentators, I think sometimes you need to take a step back. I think they have their own personal agendas for whatever reason. But as far as his peer group goes, I really feel like the reason why he does not get more credit for the dominant career that he's had is because he takes away their excuses. Okay, guys, we're going to have to switch gears. Kind of. We're going to go into some more red pill stuff. Hold on. All right, guys. So let's switch gears. Let's talk a little bit about giving credit where credit is due. Let's just strip away all the BS. Jason Garrett does not, will not, never has, and never will ever get the credit for the amazing coaching job that he's done. The amazing job that he's done helping the Dallas Cowboys scout talent, bring in talent, and develop talent. It's ironic to me that no matter how the Cowboys play, it's always Jason Garrett is some goofball clapping, caricature of Opie, right? That's what they portray Jason Garrett as, the typical sports media. He's a yes man, puppet, howdy doody to Jerry Jones. That's what people say about Jason Garrett. Now, am I speaking in hyperbole? A little bit. But that's basically the idea that they try to convey. And it doesn't matter what Jason Garrett does. You realize that if Jason Garrett had led the Cowboys to the NFC Championship, had they gotten past the Rams, had they gotten that first down, with Ezekiel, and they would have gotten that touchdown, and all of a sudden, Dak put it on them, and they got out of there with a 3-point win, you realize it would still be that the Cowboys got to the NFC Championship game in spite of Jason Garrett, not because of Jason Garrett. You do realize that if Jason Garrett is to win a Super Bowl, which I really do believe they have a window to do that in the next 2 years, if he were to win a Super Bowl, it would still not ever give Jason Garrett any kind of traction in the sports media. And the reason why is because it has nothing to do with Jason Garrett, and it has everything to do with the Dallas Cowboys. Because here's the reality. The Dallas Cowboys as an organization is judged on a completely different level than every other franchise. I mean, look at the NFC East. Look at how many titles, NFC East titles, Dallas has won in the last 8 years. And you match that up, 9 years, you match that up to every other NFC East team. Cowboys have by far been the most consistent. You look at the talent that is in the pipeline for the Dallas Cowboys as far as where they're at with their cap space, where they're at with rookies, with the newly drafted 2-3 year guys, where they're at, how they're developing, and you're going to see that Dallas Cowboys are sitting pretty right now. You look at what they've been doing with coaching, who they've been bringing in, and whether or not it's helped. It was not that long ago that they fired their offensive line coach. They brought in an old cowboy, and everybody was knocking Jerry Jones and Jason Garrett and all this and that about how come they just want to stay in the family. It's like a good old boy town in Dallas, Texas there, and they just want to stay in the family. But did the offensive line start playing better? But all of a sudden, no mention of that. No mention of that change. So, it's one of those things where it's extremely upsetting to me that Jason Garrett will never get the credit that he deserves. Bill Parcells is constantly brought up. But when you look at what Parcells did, he never developed a quarterback. I mean, you could say he developed Tony Romo to a certain extent, right? But after he got a quarterback, he was gone. What does that tell you? That it's hard to work with Jerry Jones? That's it? Jerry Jones is the only one that's hard to work with in that scenario. It's not that Bill Parcells is hard to work with. It's only Jerry Jones. Even though Bill Parcells has bounced around from, he's been coach, 4 different teams? Head coach 4 different teams? But it's not Bill Parcells that's hard to work with. It's Jerry Jones. Bill Parcells' record is not stellar. His record is not stellar over his course of his career. His record is pretty good. He has a couple Super Bowls. He's a good coach. He's maybe a Hall of Fame coach, maybe. I would really suggest that, there are other coaches that might be a little bit better. But when it comes to performance in Dallas, and that's what people should take into consideration, is that by far Jason Garrett has had a much better performance with much more data to go off of than Bill Parcells did. Now, if Jason Garrett is the leader that I think he is, they're going to move into an offensive coordinator that has some different ideas than Linehan, but is going to continue to ask Dak to develop. Like I said before, I'm about 95% bought into Dak now. I'm really, really close to saying, yeah, I'm a Dak guy. Not completely, but I'm getting close. And, it's just a couple of throws. It's just a couple of reads here and there that he has to see guys open. And it'll be there. And if Garrett and, Jones are the leaders of that organization that I believe that they are, I think what's going to happen is they're going to ask Dak a simple question. Are you in this for money and purely money, or are you in this for legacy? Because if you're in this for legacy, Dak, you got to take less than 22. You got to take like 17 to 20. Because we got to re-sign these other guys. We're going to see basically the Rams facing the Patriots. Pretty much it's hired guns against the budget system, right? We're going to get good guys, guys that are not the highest quality, but are quality, and we're going to put them into a good system and put them in a position to win versus a bunch of hired guns. Now, you might want the success of the Rams, even if they are to win the Super Bowl for the 1 year and be one and done. But for me, I would much rather have the sustained dominance that the Patriots have had. And I think that if Garrett is the leader that I think he is, and if he's been as key to the development and selection of this talent that we see, I think the Dallas Cowboys could be a very competitive team and maybe even reach a dominant level for the next probably handful of years, 5 to 6 years, and really run that NFC East. Because you look around at that NFC East, and there's some of those people have really, really bad pocketbooks. Some of those teams, their pocketbooks are not in good shape. So it's not going to be pretty when the end comes. I mean, you got Eli taking up a huge chunk of money in New York with his production coming down. You have, of course, he has OBJ there with him, who's also taking up a big chunk. Means what are they going to be able to do on defense? Right? You got Alex Smith eating up a lot of money in Washington. Okay. The Eagles went out and made a bunch of signings. That's how they made their Super Bowl run last year. So let's see, can they continue to pay guys? I mean, at some point, the check is going to come due. They can't just keep restructuring indefinitely. And let's not forget, in the NFL, because of the nature of the sport, the physicality of the sport, the window of health is much, much shorter than it is in other sports. So we're going to see, just how well teams are put together and just who isn't dysfunctional. Because, the Cowboys get labeled with dysfunction quite often. However, they have won like 3 division titles in the last 6 years, and the cupboard looks pretty stocked right now. So we'll see what Jerry Jones and Jason Garrett can do with this young group of talent. Can they sell Zeke? Can they sell D-Law? Can they sell Amari? And can they sell Dak on legacy over dollars? Because if you can sell them on legacy, you could be the group that brought the Cowboys back to prominence. Right? If they can sell them on legacy, oh man, it's going to be a very fun 5 to 7 years for Dallas Cowboy fans. All right, man. Let's move on. So let's transition to the UFC. So we had some really big things happen recently. Of course, we had the debut of the UFC on ESPN Plus. In that particular night of fights, you had Donald Cerrone look really, really good against a young contender at 155. I believe he was ranked number 11. And, people were wondering how Cowboy was going to look. I know I was wondering how Cowboy was going to look. Like, were we going to see the old Cowboy that basically allowed his emotions to get the best of him and rush in and do, unsavory things, things that maybe he shouldn't be doing, ill-advised things? Or were we going to see the Cowboy Cerrone that fights smart and that was composed like he was against Mike Perry? Fortunately for those of us who are Cowboy Cerrone fans, we saw the latter. We saw a very composed, very business Cowboy Cerrone. He went in there and somehow, basically through, it looked like using distance, he really slowed down the quicker fighter, right? He just a quicker, faster, younger guy, really wanted to get in there, really wanted to disrespect Cowboy. And he came after him, and Cowboy just kept kind of moving around, moving back, slowing him down, basically staying just out of range to where the guy would have to come in behind a jab or behind a punch, and in which case that gave Cowboy the tell that, hey, he's trying to strike, he's trying to close the distance, and he would be able to move back, take the angle, and he just picked him apart. And he picked him apart with power shots, which was really, really something I didn't see coming. A couple of straight right hands, and then the big head kick to finish him off. It was an outstanding performance by Cowboy, and then he talked about fighting Conor McGregor and doing that fight. And so hopefully that will happen. Now we know that generally when Conor says, hey, let's make something happen, generally that fight happens. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the next fight for Conor McGregor. Again, it will come down to which Cowboy Cerrone we see. If we see a Cowboy Cerrone that is smart, is, how would I say, unemotional, that's tactical, right? I think Cowboy presents a lot of problems for Conor McGregor, in the sense that Cowboy can go deep into a fight. He has very good endurance. He has a very good gas tank. He doesn't strike with as much volume as Nate Diaz all the time, or that's not his forte, but he can definitely up the volume of strikes in comparison to Conor McGregor. He also has an outstanding wrestling and ground game, which is very, very, very underrated. People just don't realize how good on the ground Cowboy Cerrone is, and he is very, very good. So I don't think it's as simple as Conor gets to take him down, or Conor, he has to fall down and he's just going to like lay and pray holding Conor in his guard. I think he's very dangerous if he gets Conor into his guard. If he gets the takedown on Conor, he's not going to do a Khabib. That's not his skill set, or that's not his tactic, right? He's not going to just sit there and be in half guard and lay on him and land pitter-patter punches, right? He's going to look to punish Conor for being on bottom. So it would be a much different fight. Now, as far as Conor goes, being that southpaw and using that stance he likes to use, he's really good at gauging people's time. He's very good at the pre-game as well, into baiting guys into doing what he wants them to do. So, I would think he really wants Cowboy to come in on him. He wants Cowboy to try to get into a boxing match with him. I think that, if Cowboy's smart, he's going to work the leg. He's going to use his leg kicks, and he's going to fade away from the big left hand, so that even if Conor tries to throw it, it's going to come with not as much power. And he's going to try to attack that leg. And once he attacks that leg, that'll mean that Conor won't be able to move in that same kind of bouncy, flashy, in and out, like I'm going to flash in, I'm going to flash out kind of motion. So I think that that's what Cowboy's going to want to do. But knowing Conor, he's also going to understand that what Cowboy's going to want to do, and he's going to try and bait him away from that into, hey, let's see if you want to exchange with me. And Conor's going to try and pressure him and close that distance and get it into a distance where Cowboy feels like he has to punch, like he has to throw something, like he has to answer. And then that would be the moment where Conor's going to look to slip and then come over with that left hand, right? That's what Conor's known for. That's his signature technique. That's the technique, the trap that he tends to catch everybody with. Everybody knows to a certain extent that it's coming. Very, Mayweather-esque with the slip away and then coming over back with the right hand, right? The pull and then the right hand, right? Very Floyd Mayweather-esque, where everybody knows it's coming, but it's a whole different thing when it's in your face. Now, what Khabib was able to do, to counter that, was even though Conor was trying to force Khabib to go to his left and seem to cut off the ring, it didn't matter. Khabib forced the exit to the right. And when he did that, he took away the angle that McGregor likes to throw with. So, is there now a, quote, book on how to defeat that particular, strategy and tactic that Conor's been using so effectively? I guess we'll see. Now, what he might catch him with is one of those bolo uppercuts if he tries to do that. I think that's probably a shot that Conor's been working on more and more. I think he was probably a little bit too emotional against Khabib. I think maybe he looked for it just too much. He wanted to prove a point too much. I think that, it could have been a more competitive, better fight had Conor not been looking to just simply knock out Khabib. But that's just my take on that fight. All right, guys. Next, we did see Henry Cejudo versus TJ Dillashaw, and Henry Cejudo absolutely annihilated TJ. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm the biggest TJ fan. I'm not. I never have been. That being said, I did respect the guy. Or I should say, I do respect the guy. He's a fighter. I respect him. I know how much work it takes. I mean, I just trained jiu-jitsu, and I know what kind of work it takes to make progress in jiu-jitsu. I can imagine if I had to make that progress at the same time as constantly competing in order to put food on the table, and do it in boxing and do it in kickboxing and so on and so forth. So I understand. That being said, I found it very disrespectful on his part, and I found it very disappointing that it seemed that that TJ just did not want to give Cejudo his credit. Oh, I didn't lose that fight. Oh, he won, I guess, blah, 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 but, he didn't win that fight. He didn't really win that fight. Yeah, it's going to be on his record, but he didn't win that fight. They took it from me. Well, come on, bro. I mean, let's be honest. If you don't want the judge or the ref to take it away from you, then you can't get put down 3 times in 30 seconds. Now, could they have let that fight go on a little bit longer? Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think you could have, and I don't think anyone would have blamed the ref had he wanted to see more action, right? That being said, I don't have a problem with the stoppage. I mean, he shoved him down the first time. Just shoved him down. Now, I get it. He was off balance, this and that and the other. But clearly the speed disadvantage was there. The only reason why he got shoved down was because he was completely off balance, because he completely whiffed on a strike and was completely off balance. So Cejudo just basically shoved him down. So the speed difference was completely evident. The shot that hurt TJ in the first place that put him down, that was a shot that he knew was coming. He tried to move and still got clipped with it. There is an outstanding breakdown, if you haven't seen it, by the Weasel, MMA Examiner, I believe is his channel. It's called What Really Happened, right? And he talks about this fight, he breaks it down, and he shows exactly what happened. So the guy was outclassed in speed, gets knocked down, not once, not twice, but 3 times he gets basically put down, okay? Where Henry connects and his body goes limp. Yeah, he gets up, he starts struggling again. Boom, Henry connects, he goes back down to the canvas. He gets up. Couple more strikes, Henry connects, boom, and he hits the canvas. I mean, exactly how many times does he have to hit the canvas? I mean, we all saw Cody was still flailing around at air. Does that mean that we should be upset that they stopped the Cody fight? No. If you don't want it to be quote unquote called early, then don't get knocked down. And definitely don't get knocked down 3 times. So, I just, it made me lose a little bit of respect for TJ. I really hope that, after the emotion goes away, I understand he was talking out of frustration in the moment, but I think after the emotion drains out of him and he's had a couple weeks, I hope he comes back. I hope he kind of changes his tune there and says, hey, you know what? Hats off. I think the stoppage was early. I felt like I could have recovered. Clearly, they didn't feel that way. I lost the fight. Hey, I want an opportunity to redo it again because I feel like I didn't get to really show my best stuff. Okay? I mean, that's it. That's all you got to say. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to disparage Cejudo's performance and be like, well, he didn't win. Well, yeah, clearly he actually did win. Like, we all watched the fight, dude. You got beat up. Let's just say this. If this was a schoolyard fight and the teachers had broken it up at that point, who would we be saying who kicked whose ass? We definitely wouldn't be saying, well, TJ's face really did a number on Henry's hands. I can tell you that much. That's not what we'd be saying. We'd be saying, woo, boy, Henry kicked his ass. Right? People would be running around talking about, you got knocked out. Right? That's what people had been saying. Because, no, you got knocked down. Yeah, it was only 30 seconds, but you got knocked down 3 times. Okay? The other thing is, in MMA, one of our little claims to fame as far as, MMA fans go is safety, safety, safety. And we talk about how it's, safer than boxing because when a guy gets knocked down, he gets finished, he's not getting up and getting punched some more and then going down again and then getting up. And we don't have the 3 knockdown rule, which is crazy. Well, in this instance, pretty much that's what happened. A 3 knockdown rule. I mean, exactly how much damage do you want a guy to take before the ref says, look, you're not intelligently defending yourself? Just sprawling out and just trying to grab leg isn't necessarily intelligently defending yourself. That's like saying that covering up, turtling on the ground and just covering your head is intelligently defending yourself. I think they should change it to intelligently competing to win the fight, right? To advance your position. Maybe they need to change it, because if you say that, intelligently defending yourself, is it intelligent if you're knocked senseless to cover your head? Yeah, it's intelligent, but it's also, a reaction at that point. It's instinct at that point. And for these wrestlers and for these, big time MMA guys, yeah, to a certain extent, it is, instinct for them to reach up and start grabbing for a leg, start grabbing for whatever they can get a hold of and tie the guy down. That's, they drill it over and over and over again. So there's that. Then lastly in the UFC, of course, the test came back for Jon Jones, and what do you know? He was hot again. I just don't even know what to say, man. I mean, this is just getting out of hand. At this point, I think the UFC, if they're not already in plans or in works to, they just need to drop the whole doping, anti-doping, just drop it, because if you're not going to suspend this guy and he could just keep coming back with metabolites, turnable metabolites for the rest of his career, and you're just going to keep giving him licenses and finding a way to get him a license, and then, I mean, come on, that's completely not fair. It's not fair that other people get suspended, but Jon Jones is able to continue to get a license. I mean, it just isn't fair. And that's no knock on Jon Jones. I think he's an amazing talent. I'm just saying, from a level of fairness, it's not fair that some people, get a suspension while other people get to compete. Like, just make it fair across the board. Everybody gets to compete. Who cares what's in your blood system? And there you go. Or everybody gets suspended if you have metabolites in your blood. It doesn't matter how picogrammy they are, nanogram, whatever. It doesn't matter. If it's, there, it's there. And that's the way it's got to be. It's got to be pretty binary in that sense. Otherwise, you're really taking, food off of people's table. You're taking money out of people's pocket if you're not going to be binary about it. All right, guys, that's all I got. Watch out for the YouTube. We're going to be doing some live stuff more often, the way I've been doing, where it's just like a 5-10 minute clip. And also, it's not going to be part of the Red Pill Sports and Entertainment Show format, but it will be part of the O.s.s channel, where we do basically the documentary documenting of what I'm doing, where I'm at, and all that kind of stuff. So if you were interested, you can watch that. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later. Remember, be practical, be purposeful, get fit with a purpose.